Are the Miami Hurricanes going to be a national championship contender again in 2026? Is Darian Mensah coming to Coral Gables to take over for Carson Beck? Or are Duke's lawyers going to be able to prevent it from happening? We're going to discuss all that and more here on our next installment of the Wide Right podcast. But first, here's my buddy, Carlos Ledo. How you doing, brother?
I'm hanging in there, bro. As the caption reads, I'm heartbroken in Hialeah, but you know, I've showed up. Got to take it like a man. You know what I'm saying? Uh, as you can see, the Dolphins hat is gone. The sunglasses are gone. It's over. The streak ended. Thought that
Yeah.
last Dolphins hat was going to bring it home, but apparently it did not. But hey, here we are.
Uh, we're going to talk about Miami's glorious run to Monday's national championship game at Hard Rock Stadium, where unfortunately the dream season fell a couple of plays short. But I don't want to relive all those painful details right now because everybody saw what happened. Carlos, I know you're doing pretty well. There's some Hurricanes fans who have not come out of it yet, but all of the focus right now, really, the last 48 hours, has been what is Miami going to do going into next year? And that's the whole point of this episode. What's happening with Darien Mensah, the quarterback. So I want to get into that here. Got a lot of stuff I want to share from what I gathered over the weekend at Media Day, what I got from interviews before the game, after the game. We're definitely going to answer your mailbag questions, but we got to start with the hottest story everyone wants to talk about, and that's Mensah, who, if you were paying attention last Friday, before the I guess maybe when the drinking began for a lot of Miami fans, as the national championship game was getting closer, he decided at the 11th hour on Friday, at the very last minute, to call Manny Diaz and tell him, "Hey, I'm entering the portal." We know, that his intention is to become a Hurricane. We know he signed a huge contract with Duke last year. He lived up to those expectations, led the team to the ACC championship, threw for nearly 4,000 yards, 34 touchdowns, 6 picks. The problem is, Carlos, he still has another year left on that NIL deal. And so we're sitting here waiting to see what's going to happen because Duke has decided to file a lawsuit against Darien Mensah. Carlos, I sent you a copy of that lawsuit earlier today so you could read it over so we could talk about it. But first, a couple of quick facts here about our boy Darien Mensah. Number one, a Durham County judge earlier today granted Duke's request for a temporary restraining order blocking Mensah from enrolling to play football at another school. The hearing for this restraining order will be February 2nd. If you're wondering, the last day to enroll in classes for the spring semester at Miami was today, Wednesday, January 21st. That means Mensah will probably not be able to play in spring practices with the Hurricanes. And the earliest he could is probably this summer. Again, probably. We all know rules are meant to be broken. Number two, Menson was not blocked from entering the portal. Per NCAA rules, Duke had to process his request Wednesday, so his name is in the portal. Unlike Wisconsin, who obviously tried to stop Xavier Lucas from entering the portal, Duke didn't try to do that with Mensah. But there's a huge difference here in the lawsuits, Carlos. Number one, Lucas, when he came to Miami last year, was not getting sued by his school. Mensah is, right? Wisconsin's trying to sue Miami for what happened with Xavier Lucas, for basically trying to induce him to come into the portal. What Duke is trying to do now legally is go after Mensah. And so Matt Baker, who works with me at The Athletic, we've been talking about whether or not Duke can actually win this case and stop Mensah from being able to enroll in classes, sign an NIL deal with Miami and play for the Hurricanes. Duke's lawyers are telling Baker, my colleague at The Athletic, that absolutely they can win the case. Carlos, I know you have a different opinion. I want to get to it.
So let me start by saying this. I clearly, as some of you know, you may not know, I'm actually an attorney. I graduated from law school. I passed the bar exam. I practice law. Now, disclaimer, I am not an attorney that focuses on contract law. That's not my area of expertise. I obviously have no expertise in the area of NIL deals, but I do know employment law a little bit due to my work in the past and what I'm currently doing in terms of consulting with businesses and stuff that I do aside from my regular practice areas, which happen to be estate planning, small business law, and of course taxes if you guys need some help. Anyway, the biggest issue that Duke is going to face here with this contract is they are, just to simplify it, and again, I'm going to take this to layman's terms, they are essentially trying to treat Darian Mensah, under the guise of him being an employee who's signed a contract and not a contractor. But they openly state in the contract and in this lawsuit that he, in fact, is a contractor and not an employee of the university. Why do they do that specifically? Why does Duke and why does no other college football team want these players to be considered employees? Well, for one, you've got to adhere to EEOC standards. You've got to make sure they've got health insurance based on federal and state standards. You got to make sure they're taken care of. You got to offer them the same state retirement plan that's offered to the employees of the university if they are state employees. All these things that are benefits that become added on and add additional pressure to the university to treat these players in a certain way, or they could face not just them leaving in the transfer portal, but an actual claim against them through the EEOC based on how you treat them. All these things, that's a powder keg they don't want to get into. It's much cleaner and much easier to treat them as contractors because effectively they are. So when you're a contractor, you're not subject to certain rules or regulations or laws as an employee is, right? One of the
Hmm.
that Duke is trying to impose here is a non-compete, basically, is what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that because Darien Mensah signed this contract, he cannot effectively pick up and leave and go to another university. Well, here's the problem. You can't enforce a restrictive non-compete, a restrictive covenant against a contractor in this manner because you are now restricting him from pursuing a living based on his craft, right? It's not like
Hmm.
Darien Mensah can go to the University of Miami and earn the same amount of money by just being a student or by working as a janitor.
Right.
That's not the point. The point is he has a specified skill set that is the reason why he's being contracted by Duke and being paid the money he did get paid by Duke, which is why he's able to take those skills and move them on to the University of Miami. Additionally, when you sign a restrictive covenant, a non-compete, most of those are generally restricted maximum to a 100-mile radius of wherever you are centrally located at, right? So if you're working in Durham, North Carolina, that covenant can only restrict you to a 100-mile radius of Durham, North Carolina, not to the University of Miami, which is clearly much farther away than that. And again, that's only when you're an employee and you sign a specific non-compete. The other thing, and another big crux is, and this not only gets into state law, contract law, but also now constitutional law, you cannot restrict the educational freedom of a university student. A
Right.
university student is allowed to transfer from university to university and pursue their education wherever they wish. You cannot stop them from doing that. And contracting against that makes that contract, guess what? Illegal.
Hmm.
So if that's what they're trying to enforce, they're basically going to shoot themselves in the foot. The only thing Duke can get out of this is if they sue for breach of contract and they're able to recover part of what they pay Darien Mensah based on his failure to perform his end of the deal, essentially, right? And to this point, I mean, once their season ended, I'm assuming there's nothing else that he had to do to continue earning paychecks until the next season kicked off. But if there isn't, whatever nominal amount that is, he's going to have to pay that back to Duke. There is no money at this point that they have sued for. The other thing is because they're suing in a local Durham state court, they're getting a sort of a bias lean toward Duke because, as it was revealed today, I think the judge's wife worked for Duke University or works for Duke, and they're switching judges to be able to
Well, no,
get
the judge was a season ticket holder to Duke basketball, so he had to recuse himself.
right,
And
and
then,
so that's a problem. So
yeah,
obviously, if Heitner wants, he can move this to federal court because they have to. They're essentially the damages that Duke is claiming is more than $75,000, and when that's the case, you can move that from state to federal court, which would probably give him an advantage there. But ultimately, this is going to get thrown out unless it's just a breach of contract. They're going to have to allow Darien Mensah to enroll wherever he desires. They cannot contract against him as a student, right? Because that's not just contract law, that is constitutional law. You cannot infringe upon a person's ability to pursue a free education. So ultimately, now that I'm done speaking intelligently, you guys are not used to, this is going to get thrown out the window, and they're all going to kiss our ass.
look, we got a lot of people at the Athletic working on this Mensa story. We're going to be on top of it all the way through. You can follow our coverage there. Obviously, everybody in the country is following this because this is a juicy story. As many of you know, the University of Washington didn't sue Damon Williams when he announced he was entering the transfer portal, but they did force him back into school. He looked like he was going to go to LSU with Lane Kiffin and never got to that point. But if you want an example of a school winning a fight over an NIL contract, look no further than that one with Damon Williams, who did have a buyout in his contract. And I confirmed with Darren Heitner through email. Darren Heitner is, of course, the lawyer for Darian Mensah, and he was the lawyer for Xavier Lucas in this case, that there is no buyout in this contract. And I asked Heitner if there was anything binding in his due contract that would prevent him from coming to Miami. And this was his response. Quote, while there's no buyout, it is clear that there is a formula that caps liability for any claim of breach of contract. When you hear that, Carlos, does it sound like everything you just said?
Exactly what I just said. And what he's effectively saying is when he says that there's a cap on liability, that means that there's a set dollar amount that they cannot exceed based on breach. So if there's a breach, there's a max amount set. It's kind of like a prenup.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's only so much they can actually get back from him.
Exactly. And they cannot stop him from transferring. There's nothing in that contract that stops him from transferring to the University of Miami, enrolling and playing for the University of Miami. And anything to that effect in that contract will be tossed out. And the only thing left will be the breach, the question of breach, which will be clear that it is a breach, and whatever damages they decide happens. Because ultimately, you cannot, like I said, it becomes what's called unconscionable in terms of contract law, where you cannot make a person sign away rights that are inherent, essentially, that cannot be contracted away.
Okay. I know we're not talking enough football here. People want to talk about the national championship game and everything else, but I felt like we had to address this because this is the hot story. And in the end, all Miami fans want to know is Mensah coming or not, right? That's
Right. And I'm glad that
specifically.
Daddy could give you a little relief, baby. I know I have to put the lawyer hat on, and I hate doing that because I do that all day, and it tires me out. I come here to laugh and enjoy.
All right, I want us to get back to football. There's going to be time to talk about Mensah's case, as I mentioned. The next date, next hearing rather, is February 2nd. I think 12:30 p.m. So whenever that is, that's like what 10 days from now, 11 days from now, before we'll get some more answers regarding Mensah. While Mensah's trying to come to Miami, there are players, of course, leaving Coral Gables. All
And
players,
let's put everybody at ease for a second, Manny, because that doesn't mean
yeah,
that he can't enroll after the spring, right? He's been in the
right,
portal. He's entered his
correct.
name. He can go wherever he wants now at this point. He doesn't have to enter before the spring. He could show up in the summer and just start taking classes in.
Right, in the summer, but it just means he won't be around for spring football most
Right. But
likely,
I think
unless
people are
Miami makes
freaked
some
out.
sort of exception, right,
Yeah,
for that.
they won't. But I mean, people are freaked out because he won't be enrolled in time and whatnot. It doesn't matter.
Right. Well, what I wanted us to get to next, because there's a lot of news to get to here before we even get to the game, is departures, right? Because the one thing everybody needs to know is while Miami is obviously still trying to add to its roster with Darien Mensah and potentially other guys who were available in the portal, didn't sign with the school, they also are losing players. And there's a 5-day window from the end of the championship game, which means beginning Tuesday and running through Saturday, that Miami players can decide, hey, I want to get up and leave. Everybody who participated in the national championship that still has eligibility can enter the portal up to 5 days after. So don't keep asking, well, wait, when does it end? It ends Saturday. There you go. There's your answer. This is the list of departures for Miami so far, Carlos. And you can see at the very top there, Emory Williams, the backup quarterback, has already found a new school. He's going to East Carolina, where Ray Joseph is. You can see at the number at the bottom there, the number of snaps lost and the number of starts lost, and the number is very low. These are
Yeah.
all backups, guys that really didn't have a role on this team. But it obviously does hurt that Emory Williams leaves, because what happens, Carlos, if Miami is unable to get its victory in court and somehow, some way, Darien Mensah is unable to come? How worried are you about Miami's quarterback situation if that happens?
First of all, it's not going to happen. Let's just say that. But second of all, if on the off chance, for whatever reason, Duke pulls a miracle out of their ass and they stop this guy from being able to come to the University of Miami, there's a couple of different options. One is obviously you go internal, right? You have to
Hmm.
roll with Darian Coleman and Luke Nickel and Judd Anderson, who's not going to win the job. Roll the dice there and figure out who's going to be your starter. Do you start one of those two guys? Do you give each of them playing time early in the season to figure out, when the bullets are flying, who's the better guy?
Hmm.
Or another option is you go with another veteran in the portal who may not be a star, who may not be a guy who's highly recognized, maybe a lower group of five guy, or maybe an FCS guy that you bring in to compete as well. And at minimum adds additional depth and an experienced body if you need to move on from one of the younger guys if there's an injury.
Right. And again, I'm trying to tell people like Duke is going after Walker Eget, who was the quarterback at San Jose State. That's who they're trying to get right now to replace Darian Mensah. There are bodies available in the portal.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would mention in all this,
Is your
Carlos,
cousin still available from Ohio? Navarro?
Parker Navarro, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure he is. I don't know if he signed anywhere. I've been so focused on just Miami and what's going on there that I haven't spent enough time looking at the portal. I'm catching up today. I spent the whole day doing a roster breakdown for Miami, for Indiana, for all the championship contenders to see what they actually have, like a full, you know, every single position room. And we're gonna get to that for Miami here in a minute. But my point is, I don't even know what's available. I just know there's a lot of guys that are still unsigned because they entered this portal thinking, oh, we're gonna go get paid, and then they realize, wait a minute, there's people aren't leaving. There's people staying. They're being smart. They're not taking off. There's not as many spots available as possible. So, um, for Miami, the good news is again, none of these guys who have announced or it's been reported that they're leaving are starters for them. There are some freshmen in that group. Obviously, you can see the class of 2025. So there are some new guys that just got here that are already taking off, looking for other places. But that's part of college football now, and I know some Miami fans are going to be bummed about that. But every single year, brother, you and I have talked about this. Like it's a full roster makeover. There's 40, 50 guys every single year that you say goodbye to.
It's just the nature of the game, man. The transfer portal giveth and it taketh, right? So as excited as we are to land dudes, there's other teams out there that are excited to land our guys too. And ultimately, what you're giving up are a bunch of guys who really were going to be depth pieces. They weren't going to be frontline starters or guys that were going to compete for a job. Maybe a couple were, but it wasn't really going to be somebody that you expected to have a major role on the team next year. Because a lot of them, they'd been here for a little while and just didn't develop. So the more frustrating thing is when you see a freshman or a redshirt freshman leave without having an opportunity to compete for a job moving into another year. But ultimately, you know what? Miami's gonna be fine. They'll fill out the roster. They've had some really good recruiting classes over the last few years, and that's the point of it. Because now you're not just dealing with, am I loading the roster enough to fill that too deep? You also got to think about, all right, I have to calculate and factor in, bake into the cost of recruiting the attrition that I'm going to face in the transfer portal.
Yep. This is a look at the guys entering the draft or out of eligibility. You can see the list there. Carson Beck is listed as a redshirt junior. That's just my typo. Should be redshirt senior.
No, no, no.
Obviously,
How many
switched
years
here.
is this guy going to have? A redshirt junior in a home?
Markel Bell as well, obviously a senior. He decided to, instead of, I don't know if he was seeking the waiver or not to come back. He may have been. I know when I talked to him on Saturday, he told me he still wasn't sure if he was leaving. So I know some people have mentioned that maybe his waiver got denied. I'm not 100% sure. It's just too many
Listen,
guys
left
to keep track
tackle
of.
size. He's put a spotlight on himself coming in through this playoff.
Right.
Time to go, bro. Go get paid. Be a second or third rounder.
Well, he's going to the Senior Bowl, so you can see the list here. Obviously, I mean, you look at the double-digit starters. There's a lot coming off of this roster, Carlos.
Give me, yeah. So I mean, for me, obviously, the two biggest losses are going to be Bain and Mesidor, in my mind. That's going to be the hardest to replace because those are the two best defensive ends in the country, and they played on the same defensive line. And not only because of what they did in the pass rush, but those two guys were highly effective playing the run. That it was fantastic to watch. And then of course Keontae Scott is the other guy that's going to be sorely missed. It's going to be difficult replacing a guy with that ability to cover in the nickel spot, but also be a hell of a blitzer on the edge and to be a great guy to come in and run support and run fit as a defensive back. He played effectively as a hybrid linebacker, corner, safety. One of the most versatile players we've had here at the University of Miami. Then you look at guys like, that didn't really hit their ceiling. To me, you got a Chase Smith who came in here with a lot of promise. People wanted to see him on the field for years, hoped that he would develop into something he never really did. Wesley Basaint was, the much ballyhooed recruit that to me was good, but never great, never really reached the level of the hype behind his name. You're of course going to miss Francis Mauanoa, who is going to be one of the best offensive tackles we've had here at the University of Miami, along with Inez Cooper, another guy who's going to be one of the best guards we've had here. It's going to be difficult replacing those guys on the right side. Brockenmeyer could ride; he wasn't great. Bauman, of course, now can ride. Get him out of here. And then you've got you've got guys that that you're going to miss too that were contributors to this team, like David Blade, Jacoby Thomas, C.J. Daniels, Caleb Marion, guys that you over this run fell in love with, and of course Carson Beck, a guy who Yes, the season ended on another Carson Beck interception, like all the losses have this season. But I think without him being the leader, the steady hand throughout the playoffs that he was, and also the last 4 games of the season, we don't get here.
Miami had one coach take off since the game on Monday. Cody Woodall, the tight ends coach, left for Mississippi, Ole Miss. He actually is from Mississippi, so it makes sense. I think he wants to eventually move to offensive line coach. And here at Miami, that's probably just not going to happen, right? With Mario and Mirabal and the situation you've got there. 6 additions through the portal so far for Miami. I was going to show you that list as well here. 2 of them are kickers, which I don't have listed, but you can see 2 receivers. Both of them experienced starters last year, productive guys, played a lot of snaps. You have Jaquez Carter, who is essentially coming in to replace Donta Simpson. He's a second-year guy, played 51 snaps for Ohio State, and then Omar Thornton, who's kind of a safety / nickelback type who could potentially replace a Keontae Scott in terms of Miami's roster. Those of you wondering about the kickers, because obviously we know what happened on Monday, right?
God.
Uh, Jake Weinberg from Florida State and Jack Olson from Northwestern. Weinberg was 12 of 19 on field goals this past season, just 3 of 8 from 40 yards plus. Olson was 19 of 21 on field goals. His 2 misses were short ones. He's 9 of 15 from 40 yards plus in his career. So, Carlos, get back to our conversation here about Miami and next season. I'm going to start flipping through the position group rooms here in a second, but I wanted to show you guys what BetMGM thinks of Miami's championship odds going into next year, based off of probably reports that they're getting Darien Mensah. Right?
Right.
I'm assuming the odds would have been affected by that. Before we take a look at the rooms, let's take a look at the odds here real quick. And you'll see that Miami's got the 11th best odds at plus 2,000 to win the national championship next year. I'm going to put you on the spot because winning a championship, I mean, who knows, right? We would never have envisioned Miami going on this run to begin with. We thought they were done after they lost to SMU. But I'm curious, when we start to look at these rooms, what do you think the odds are that the Hurricanes can actually get back to the playoffs next year?
I think it's very dependent upon who they have a quarterback, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
that if they've got a guy like Mensah, that elevates the ability to get there. I also think it depends upon how you replace those guys on the offensive and defensive lines. I think with linebacker, with the DB and those sorts of things, you could probably plug and play. You know, you already got Omar Thornton there to try and make up for the Keontae Scott role, and you got Bryce Fitzgerald who's going to slot into one of the safety roles. So you've got guys you could plug into those other areas. But to me, you know, the superstars that were Bain and Mesidor and Manuel and Anez Cooper, that's going to be difficult to replace along with Markel Bell. So you've got to pick up, I think, at least a tackle in the portal. I think the idea is, you know, Cantwell at right tackle. They just picked up a guy from Ohio State. They're hoping they could compete for the right guard job. And you've got Okunlola at left guard. So that really leaves you essentially with a left tackle and a center. So if they land the guy from Colorado, that's plug and play.
Jordan
That's
Seaton, right?
yeah, and then you've got to pick up a center or see if you've got somebody internally that you trust there at the center spot. So if they can do that, if they can pick up Seaton at left tackle, and this guy from Ohio State pans out at right, and then they've got a guy at center that they could trust there, unless they go pick somebody up in the portal now, then they should be able to replace those pieces there on the offensive line. If Cantwell becomes another Malinois, which all accounts are that he should be. But we don't know. But again, I mean, on the defensive line, I think this is why they're pursuing the guy from Missouri, right? That he's just effectively
Right, Damon Wilson, the edge rusher. We're gonna get. Let's start off first of all. Let's start off at. We'll start with defense. Since you mentioned Mesidor and Bain, I want us to get a good look at what they have coming back on the defensive line. You can see right now, 17 bodies. I included all the freshmen that arrived. Carlos, Keyshawn Stansel's a guy that I've been told internally is good enough to be in the rotation. Ahmad Moten is going to be back. Justin Scott is going to be back.
those are huge.
Uh, those are 2 huge interior guys from Miami. Obviously, that's where the bulk of your starting experience is. You've got Armando Blunt, who's played over 400 snaps. You had Lightfoot, who's played close to 300 snaps. So essentially, that's your starting 4, right? And then from there, you mix in a Scroggins, a Carter, who they got from Ohio State. You'll probably see a Booker Pickett, Hayden Lowe get in there as well. And then you have some freshmen that could potentially find roles as well. But this is a much younger team. You add a Wilson from Missouri, right, who obviously had a big season over there. That would help you in terms of experience. But what do you think the health of this room?
So for me, I think it's great. I think you're going to have a lot of bodies. The issue is you don't have those superstars on the edges, and it's not like I said, it's not just the pass rush, it's the run setting, the edge setting, right? The
Hmm.
way they played the run was effective because there were bigger bodies. They weren't light in the ass. To me, Marquise Lightfoot, pardon the pun, is a little light in the ass,
Hmm.
and he gets tossed around in the run game a lot. He's a great pass rusher. He's got some speed, some effectiveness. He could be physical at times, but a lot of times he gets lost in the wash because he's just not strong enough. Armando Blunt, I don't think is a great pass rusher. I think he's a better edge setter. But then we see sometimes, the mistakes he makes. Obviously, in the championship game, he had that face mask. But I think he could be a good player. I just don't think their bodies are there yet. Now, obviously, anything can happen with an offseason. These guys could develop their bodies a little bit more, get a little bit bigger, get a little bit stronger. But I think you need a veteran presence that you could bring off the edge that can play both the run and pass, and then you can have guys rotate in on the other side and mix bodies in. I think this year is going to be more of a defensive end and defensive line by committee,
Hmm.
especially on that end spot to try and keep bodies fresh and keep guys coming in waves at opposing quarterbacks as opposed to the 90% of the snaps going to two guys.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the linebackers and interesting development here. And I don't know if you saw Gabby Urrutia on Twitter sort of broke out a scenario that maybe Miami's able to bring back Mo Torre. I know a lot of people think, well, he's been in college for a long time, right? He's 2019 with the season-ending injuries, the COVID year, everything else. He's really only played 3 years of football. And could come back and apply for a fourth, right, to get that opportunity. Of course, he has to weigh in. Do I go to the NFL now? Being so injury prone, he's kind of has to make a decision there. But if he were to come back, that would be a huge boon for Miami because you get a veteran starter back. You got Aguirre, Cam Pruitt, Wiley, who I know they're super excited about. You got Bonner, who's a holdover from the NC State transfer from a year ago, Marcelin, the freshman, and then the two freshman additions that are coming in at the linebacker room.
Yeah, I mean, if Torrey could come back, that gives you some steadiness at the middle linebacker spot. Him and Aguirre would be a great duo coming into the season. Aguirre's flashed throughout the year, and I think he and Torrey would be a solid pairing there in the middle. Torrey was struggling early in the year, and once the latter half of the season, especially those last four games, and then into the playoff, especially the playoffs, he kicked it into a different gear. He became a different player. It's like he locked in finally and was comfortable out there. And if we get that Mohamed Torrey back right from the jump, I think it's going to be interesting. He might be an all ACC type player, and Aguirre playing next to him, if he turns the light switch on, if he's effective and electric, as he's shown at times to be, if he could do that full time, I think they've got a really good linebacker pairing, and then they have a bunch of depth behind them.
The secondary is actually going to be probably their most experienced unit. You can see 62 starts coming back from the 2025 team. That includes obviously Omar Thornton, who comes over from Boston College. Could be a safety, could be a nickel. Just depends on where they want to put him on the field. But that by far is going to be Miami's most experienced unit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with Poiser coming back for another year, he's been up and down, but I think overall he's been solid. Him with Bryce Fitzgerald back there, they're gonna have a solid safety pairing. Thornton taking over for Keontae Scott is huge. Xavier Lucas coming back. We saw what he was all about in that second half in the championship game. That their offense changed when Xavier Lucas got out there and started playing man to man. OJ Federic is an incredible player. Unfortunately, he was a little nicked up and got hurt in that game against Indiana. Ethan O'Connor, for all the trash he's had thrown his way this week, is a really good corner. The wild card is Damari Brown. Can he stay healthy for a full year, and what is his role going to be? And Jadeus Richard is back for his 97th year of college football. That's going to be
Well,
interesting.
we'll see. We'll see. He's another one that has to decide whether or not he's coming back. He didn't play at all this year. I don't know if he was still recovering from injury or just not good enough. But they got a lot of veterans. That's the one area that for sure I look at and I say that's a strength of the team going into next year.
Yeah, they'll be a lot better than they were 2 years ago. They
Mhm.
could even be better than they were this year.
Yeah. Of course, the offensive backfield's the next area I wanted us to take a look at, and I wanted to actually play a little bit of a soundbite that I got from this weekend. I caught up with Emery Williams and Luke Nickel at Media Day. I didn't realize that you know Emery already graduated. I think he's already got his master's, and he wants to study overseas and essentially try to become a diplomat one day. But he's going to give football one more try, obviously at East Carolina, but.
I
Good
was
for
gonna
that
say East
kid.
Carolina, not known for their political science department and their ties to the State Department. But hey, Whatever.
All right, I have some audio from Luke Nickel. I want to play it here through the microphone. So if it's not great, I apologize. But I did catch up with Luke Nickel, and I wanted you to hear what he said because I asked him about sitting on the bench. Is he going to wait around? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, that audio sucks. You're better off just saying what he said.
All right, I'm gonna cut the audio off since you can't really hear it. But essentially, he said the toughest challenge for him is just sitting on the bench, right? Like he wanted to play, but he really wants to be a Hurricane. I wish I could play the audio for you. I'm sorry, it's not in better shape. But when you're in a media day, it's tough to record over there with so many human beings around you. But essentially, like he wants to stay and be a Hurricane, and we'll see what happens. I asked him about obviously Darien Mensah and that whole situation, them bringing in another quarterback, what would he do? Again, he said all the right things. I want to be a Hurricane, but I have to take it year to year, essentially. So
Yeah.
I think obviously Emery leaving creates a void where if I'm uh, Luke Nickel, I'm sticking around to compete for that job. But I just wanted people to be able to hear a little bit about what's kind of going through his mind. That's all.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, like you said, now the opportunity is he's going to be the backup, or he could be projected to be the backup, and he's essentially one play away from being the Hurricanes' quarterback.
Yep. And you look at the rest of the graphic here. Obviously, Fletcher's coming back. Jamar Brown, although he could have to make a decision as well. I think there's teams coming after him. Nebraska, I think, might be one of them. Gerard Pringle didn't really play in the playoffs. They kind of went with a different game plan. And then Jordan Lyle, we've kind of written off because he just hasn't played at all. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Miami's backfield over the next couple of days. There could be guys who leave. There could be everybody who returns. I would suspect that at least one of them will end up leaving, and most likely it'll be Jordan Lyle. But if somebody comes and ponies a lot of money for Jamar Brown, don't be surprised if that happens either.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody comes around and tries to knock on Pringle's door and offer some money.
Yeah, Miami, of course, added Javian Mallory, the West Boca Raton freshman, who's huge. He's just like Mark Fletcher, big-bodied guy, power runner. Obviously, getting Fletcher back is huge. I think for the locker room in general. Carlos. All right, let's take a look at the next position group, which is wide receivers. Just really quickly here, wide receivers and tight ends. And I'll bring it up for you to watch. You can see, obviously, Malachi Tony, Cam Vaughn, the transfer from West Virginia, Vendravius Jacobs from South Carolina. You know, decent experience. Three guys with solid starting experience. Josh Moore, of course, is I was told, got his contract renewed. JoJo Trader should be back. Dalen Upshaw should be healthy. They like Dalen Upshaw a whole lot. He was the one that was sleeping overnight inside the football facility with Malachi Tony and Keontae Scott. So very dedicated. Tight end is the position I know everybody's worried about, Carlos.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a position of weakness for the last couple of years. Elijah Lofton, even before he got hurt, wasn't as productive as we hoped or anticipated. Bauman wasn't really all that productive. So they've got to get something this season out of the tight end position. And I'm surprised they haven't tried to target someone in the portal to try and bring an experienced dude over here that can be a pass catcher and help this offense. But also with the receiver room, I mean, it's Malachi Tony and now hopefully these transfers could come in and inject some fuel into the passing game, as we saw against Indiana. We talked about all year, really. It's difficult for this team to get vertical and be explosive other than Malachi Tony.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only guy that really breaks tackles and makes moves and turns a 5-yard catch into a 90-yard play. Marion obviously had some speed, but he wasn't that sort of jukey kind of guy. So they need some additional guys that are burners, guys that can make plays. And I think Upshaw is going to add to that as well when he comes back next year. And, JoJo Trader's got to learn how to catch the ball consistently. If he can do that, that's another weapon you could use on the outside.
Yeah, I will say they are very excited about Gavin Mueller, the tight end prospect that they were able to pluck away from Colorado's class. I know that they feel very excited, like he's going to be a potential NFL guy. Israel Briggs, another wide receiver type tight end with athletic ability and skill. So I know they do feel better about the guys that they just brought in the door at that tight end position, but we'll see. And certainly Luka Gilbert. spent the year being developed. Maybe he's ready to step into a larger role next year. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
All right. One more group to look at, obviously, with the offense, and that would be the offensive line. And you can see, Carlos, that the level of experience has taken a hit.
Yeah. And I'm not, I'm not the biggest Matthew McCoy fan. So if it comes down to McCoy at left guard and Okunlola left tackle, I'm a little worried there. Because I think Okunlola, what he proved this year is that he was the best left tackle on the team. I mean, left guard on the team. They played a lot better with him at left guard than they did with McCoy, to me. And we've talked about the PFF numbers and the things we've seen throughout the year. So for me, I think Okunlola's best spot is left guard. If he's got to push out the left tackle, I think he can be good. I don't know if he's going to be as good as he can be in that tackle slot. To me, he's like another Jalen Rivers. Aside from that, maybe Ryan Rodriguez starts at center finally. I don't know. I don't know if they haven't trusted him to this point. I don't see that being the case. I think Tommy Kinsler just hit the portal.
Yeah, that might have happened. I did all this earlier this afternoon. So
yeah. So again, we're looking at Cantwell right tackle, the transfer from Ohio State at right guard if he's able to win that job or if he's good enough, and then just a bunch of young guys who've got to compete and prove themselves. So I don't know if anybody else aside from Cantwell in this class is somebody that they look at and say, hey, this guy can be a starter day one.
Well, I think Joel Irvin was somebody that they recognized early in the process as somebody who could come in, has the body, the physicality to do it. But again, it's a different deal. Thinking somebody has the body and then getting in here and actually practicing with the team and seeing what they actually have, right, and seeing how good they really are. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the offensive line position group moving forward. All right, that's it for the look ahead, Carlos. Let me go back to my notes here, what I wanted to look at. We've gone through everything. Oh, you know what we can talk about now, Carlos, finally?
No.
The game.
Oh, God. All right, let me lock in.
Time for you to lock in here, Carlos. I was saving the worst for last. The final box score from this game. 27-21, Indiana Hoosiers. I don't know what you want to dive into first, brother, but the floor is yours.
So for me, the takeaway, and I texted you this, was you can't play scared, right? I think the entire first half, this team played on both sides of the ball as if they were a boxer in a match, trying to sort of feel out their opponent, throwing jabs and staying away from them, trying to avoid the haymakers and not really imposing their will on their opponent, sort of feeling them out. And it was obvious, Indiana was out there playing the way they wanted to play, and Miami was out there sort of just existing on the field and not really taking control of the game in any way. They really didn't come out and start swinging until the second half. When they came back, I texted you at halftime and I said this to my friends. Then people on Twitter, when they asked, what do you think? I was like, listen, they got to go man. They can't keep playing zone and giving this guy easy open access throws. They've got to shut down the RPO, and you do that through playing man. And then when you're locking these receivers up and not allowing him to get the ball out quickly, then the defensive ends can go out there and do their thing, which they did. And they stopped the run effectively in the second half. They did a lot better offensively. The play calling in the first half was very conservative. I don't understand it. There wasn't like a rhyme or reason to it. There wasn't any sort of like game plan behind it. It just seemed like it was just throwing stuff out there just to figure out, let's see what they do. And not really with an attack type strategy, which really pissed me off. But ultimately, listen, what ended this game, what killed this game for me, that field goal attempt to end the first half on 4th and 2, after you went for it on 4th down on your own half of the field. You get down there, you're in their half of the field. Rather than attempting a 50-yard field goal with a guy that is inconsistent, go ahead and go for it. I mean, there's 30 seconds left, right? You either have them pick up the ball from the missed kick spot, right? Or you have them pick it up a yard in front of where it is right now, spotted, if you don't get the first down. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you're running clock, you're moving it. You have the chance to pick up the first down and pick up more points, make the field goal a little bit more makeable, or possibly score a touchdown. So that decision to sort of fold in that moment, to me, was a bad choice. I understand it, but to me, it was a bad choice. The other thing is, in the second half, the block punt, obviously, was terrible. That was just, I think what ended up happening, and I don't think people are talking about this enough, is it seemed to me like Bauman was expecting Joyce to go the other way. Mm-hmm. And that's why he sort of olayed him.
Right.
because he knows he's running to a side to get that kickoff. And that guy effectively, if Joyce is going to the other side, is not going to be a problem. He's not going to be a factor, right? He can olay him and no block is going to happen. But I think he didn't expect him to Joyce to be rolling to his side, which led to the block. I don't know, but that's what it looked like to me.
I wish
Um,
I wish I could have had an answer for you. I tried to find Alex Bowman. I tried to talk to Dylan Joyce, the punter. None of them wanted to talk, even though it was an open locker room, which is a rarity. Back in the day when I first started covering college football, you always had an open locker room after the game, right? You could talk to everybody. Nowadays, you have an open locker room in the championship game, um, but you can't get everybody to talk. The kids tell you no, and there were a lot of kids who just didn't want to talk after the game. So couldn't find Bauman, found Joyce. He declined comment. Nobody wanted to talk about who made the mistake there.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think we're going to find out. I think they're sticking for his teammate, and they're trying to not shit on the guy in a bad spot.
Hmm.
But I mean, just as big as that was, they came back and they scored a touchdown on the next drive. They got it to 17-14. Your defense is rolling. You got them in a 3rd and 17, and you get a face mask penalty.
Hmm.
There were penalties and mistakes throughout the night that kept killing them
Right.
and stopping the momentum and giving Indiana life again. And say what you will, I think when you get to this stage and in this moment against the kind of team that you were playing that night, you cannot shoot yourself in the foot. You cannot be out disciplined and out executed, because the margin for error is so razor thin in this kind of a
Hmm.
game against that kind of an opponent that they will make everything, any sort of fracture into a chasm because of how good they are. And we saw that. Look, Indiana exposed all that stuff. Every time you gave them life, they took advantage of it. Every time there was a penalty that went against us, they started driving down the field. Every time you gave them new hope, they came out with a play. They didn't do a good enough job of shutting the door when they had a chance. And then obviously the last play, you wish Beck didn't force it. Even though they said he underthrow it, he did underthrow it. But I think if he throws it a little bit more air down the sideline, the safety might get there and get the ball over the top or knock it away anyway. He had
Hmm.
Malachi Tony open late over the middle. It kind of looked more open than it did because as he went into his throwing motion, there was a little bit of separation from the linebacker that was there in the middle of the field. But there was somewhere else to go with that football, to keep the drive alive and keep it going. I think at that point, taking that shot wasn't the right decision, and it went counter to everything he had done to that point in the playoffs, which is make smart decisions and not
Yeah.
force the football.
Yeah. Keelan Marion, I was able to speak with him, me and a couple of other reporters, Pete Thamel and a couple of guys from the Miami Herald and Sun Sentinel that were in the locker room with me. Uh, and he said, it was his fault. He should have known the ball was going to come to him. He didn't know. He didn't see it, I guess, initially. And it was a miscommunication between him and Beck, who clearly, if on that play, if there's somebody running underneath the cornerback that keeps him honest instead of being able to float back, maybe the ball gets to Keelan Marion, right? Maybe he's able to make the catch, make the play, and win the game and win a championship. But that's on Beck to read the coverage. And I think one thing people have talked about in the aftermath is he did take a huge hit, right? A late hit
Yeah,
penalty to start that drive, and he did say his ears were ringing. So look, Miami got some really good shots at Fernando Mendoza that I think rattled him and affected him. And he had his second worst game of the season as a passer in terms of passer rating. Did not perform well. Obviously, did score the game winning touchdown run. We can talk about that in a second. But you going back to Beck, clearly affected by that hit and made a bad decision in the end. Made a bad decision. He knew the safety was over the top. I talked to Shannon Dawson about that play. He said, look, basically there's two reads. You look left, it's Keelan Merritt. You look right, it's Malachi Tony in the middle of the field. Beck at the line of scrimmage automatically zeroed in on the left side of the field because there were fewer bodies there and thought the moment Marion ran past Glenn Sharp's nephew that the ball was going to get to the receiver. Marion was going to make the play, and they were going to be in position to score a touchdown with probably 30 seconds to go once they got lined up at the line of scrimmage. And instead, he took a bad risk and will live forever in Hurricane memory.
yeah. It was cover two, and normally when you try to hit a hole shot against cover two, like you said, you have something underneath holding that corner in the flat, or you throw it in a position to the sideline where only the receiver can get it in between the corner and the safety. But
Mm-hmm.
again, the ball was short. Like you said, he might have been affected by that shot that he took. Um, it's sad that it ended on that play. I wish they would have driven it down and had a final play near the goal line to take a shot into the end zone. And if we would have lost that way, hey, you fought all the way down to the last second. but unfortunate that it ended that way. It's kind of a little bit anticlimactic after watching this battle all night.
All three losses for Miami this year ended with a Beck interception on the last play offensively for this team. So it's unfortunate. I think it's happened 4 times in the 6 career losses that he had. He was 37-6 as a college starter. 4 of his losses, including one at Georgia, ended with an interception on the final offensive possession for his team. So, unfortunately, people are going to remember him for stuff like that. In the end, I won't. I think without Carson Beck, Miami does not get to this national championship game. And I think you can't overstate how good he was on those 2 fourth quarter scoring drives, finding guys, making the right decisions, making the right plays. He just made one more bad decision that cost him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sad, man. He had a great run there during the playoff. A good run during the last 4 games of the season to get him into the playoff. It's sad that it ends this way. But sort of all the things that had bothered the Hurricanes coming into those final 4 games before the playoffs sort of reared their ugly head, and it was unfortunate. It was sad to see that it ended this way. I think look at the box score. You outscored
Well,
Indiana
you
20.
outgained them.
Yeah, and you outscored them in the second half. What 21-17?
Take away that special teams touchdown, and you're winning the game.
Yeah, and I predicted 20-17. It would have been 21-20. Would have been right there. Bastards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, who knows? Who knows what would have happened? Give Kurt Signetti credit. He was going to set up to kick the field goal on 4th and 4 earlier in the quarter, decided to go back in and let Fernando Mendoza run the quarterback sneak. I talked to Corey Heatherman after the game about that. He said they knew they were going to run the sneak on 4th and medium. And when they were trying to make the check at the line of scrimmage, Wesley Basainth and Mohamed Torre were all trying to basically direct the defense to tell them what was going on. He regretted that in the end, he thought he should have called a timeout to make sure they had the play right. But it was just one of those things where it was not relayed fast enough from the linebackers to everybody else on the defense. And you could see in the replay of that tremendous run by Mendoza that Miami safety, I think it was Poyser, was not able to get to the hole fast enough. Jacoby Thomas came from the other side, missed the tackle. They knew what was coming. They still couldn't stop it.
Yeah, and those are 2 things that are also killing me. The amount of missed tackles in this game, which was uncharacteristic for this team. They were usually a pretty sure tackling team. We went back to the Manny Diaz days of missed tackles here. And third down. I mean, the third down efficiency was terrible offensively for the Hurricanes. It was a lot better for Indiana, and a lot of that was aided by the penalties, which made me sick to my stomach. So Miami was 3 of 11 for the game on third down. Indiana was 6 of 16, but they also got a lot of help from penalties. And the plays they made down the stretch, really those back shoulder throws to Charlie Beck were incredible. Charlie Becker. They made the plays when they needed to. The Hurricane defense had a shot and couldn't close the door there at the end with the quarterback sneak.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's all on Carson Beck to make a play, and we just don't do it. I think it shouldn't have come down to that at the end because of the block punt. Indiana should have been driving for their life, not the other way around. But it is what it is, man. You live and learn. Listen, I was said this on X, and I said this to my friends right after the game. I said, listen, progress doesn't equal reward a lot of times. Just because you've made a lot of progress, you've done something good, you've gotten a lot better, doesn't mean it always comes with a reward at the end. You don't always get the carrot. What you get is the satisfaction of knowing that you are much better than when you started, that you climbed a mountain, that you got there, that you almost got to the precipice, but you need a little bit more work to do. But at least it sets the goal. Your starting point now is at a different level. Now you're refocused. Now you know what's possible. Now you know what you can do, and you can elevate yourself to a different level. And I think that's what this team is going to do ultimately. They're going to take this, they're going to learn from it, and as a culture, as a program, they're going to grow from it, because most of the expansion in life comes from pain. You grow most from your lowest moments, and I think Miami's going to do that. Look, 83 was born out of the years of misery, right? All the shit the Hurricanes put up with in the 70s. Finally coming close, beating Penn State with Jim Kelly, and then turning the loss against Florida into motivation that season to run the table and win the championship. 87 was born out of 84, 85, and 86. Those disappointing years, right? All those letdowns. And should have been 88 and 89 in a row. But that fumble against Notre Dame. And then, of course, you've got the time in 1990 where they felt they let a couple slip away, and they took it out on
Yeah.
Texas, and then carried that into 91. And then we had the drought until the 2001 championship, and now we're back here. So
Right.
I think it's a point of not just the end prize, like we talked about being the goal, it's the journey. And I think the journey that's gotten them here and the way they've reestablished the foundation of the program makes this sustainable.
Yeah, for sure. And the one thing I can tell you, being with the team at the end, being in the locker room, being outside the locker room, seeing all the people who came by. There was a conga line of Kane's greats like Edgerrin James, Reggie Wayne, Clinton Portis, Ed Reed. I mean, I could go on and on. There was a bunch of them, and I shot video of it of these guys standing outside the locker room, and they were sitting there thanking the players for what they'd done, right, to kind of put Miami back on the map, consoling them, saying a lot of positive, sort of messages to them to thank them for everything and for the journey, like you said. And I was able to catch up with Miami school president Joe Echeverria, and I'm gonna try, Carlos. I'm gonna try to put his sound not through my phone, but through the actual audio here. So bear with me. See if it works. It's processing.
Sure, you got to be really proud of this group, knowing what they've accomplished. But to get this close, I know you're a fan at heart. It'll probably be heartbreaking too.
It is. Well, listen, I had a terrific season. These young men never gave up. They were resilient. They were tough. Everything Mario asked them to be. Mm-hmm. We just came up one play short. Literally one play short.
What do you think of just the way this university in the last 4 years has evolved, especially with football, to get to this point? And it's not easy to build this thing. You guys obviously put a lot of effort. If you can put it into words, to see this dream realized, to get to this point, and like you said, be one play short.
Right. I said it before. It's been magical watching this play out, watching Mario do it the right way, and the kids and the culture he's built in this room. If you would have been able to listen to the post game in the room and the players' commitment to each other, and those leaving, those behind the seniors, them talking about staying in the brotherhood, was pretty extraordinary. It was pretty extraordinary for a group of kids to come together, even in a game that where we came up a little short, pretty heartbreaking. But I'm proud. I'm proud of all of them.
Yeah, and then obviously this university's commitment, it's not going anywhere, right?
No, absolutely not. We're committed to be excellent in everything we do, academics, health system, and athletics, all three.
So anyway, was that better audio?
That was great audio. That was great audio. And the picture was fantastic. I hadn't seen that quarter zip he was wearing. I need to get one.
So I'm glad I was able to share a little bit of that interview with Miami school president, because if anybody's responsible for all of this, it's him, Rudy Fernandez, all the people who listened to the Miami fans for years crying about football in the fall that it had taken. And, Joe is at the center of it all. He deserves a lot of credit. So does, I mentioned Rudy Fernandez, and just all the people, Manny Cadre, all the people who gave money, Stu Miller, the people that helped fund this internally with the university. And, to me, my takeaway, and I wrote this in my column, I kind of, I ended my column from the game with this is, for years, all Miami had was its past. Mario Cristobal has brought its present, and that's what my takeaway from all of this was.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Listen, the dedication and the foresight that it took to get these people together and aligned and get to this point. When we talked about for years, even on the podcast, that there was no alignment, there was no investment in this program. We talked about that article that there was no money flowing to this program the way it should be, even though U Health was booming. And they've turned it around. It's not just the commitment from the top, with Joe Echeverria and Rudy Fernandez, but it's also the foresight to bring in Mario and Dan Radakovich, a guy who's committed to winning and committed to doing all the things that it takes to be a big time program in the ACC and nationally on the national stage. Mm-hmm. And I think this year sort of validates that, not just for the coaching staff and the players, but for them as well. It validates the investment they've made in terms of, the sacrifice of time and effort they put in, the money they've been able to flow into the program through donors, through endowments, through different things that they've had to do to try and get people to trust them in a situation where for years there was no reason to trust, right? Everybody had, just like us, all the donors, all the alumni had PTSD. They've seen it. They've heard it before. They've heard how this next guy was going to be the savior and how they should invest and how their dollars were going to go towards building a champion again, and they never saw a single return on that. And they trusted and they believed, and it paid off this season, getting to the precipice, getting right there to the edge of where we all wanted to be. But ultimately, you know what? Now this validates that whole plan. It shows that it's for real, that we're not just talking this time, that we're not just trying to be snake oil salesmen to get you to pour more money into the program. We're for real, we're legit, and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, well said, Carlos. One other little thing that happened in this game that I know people made a big deal about. Mark Fletcher took a swing at one of Indiana's players in the post-game handshake. There was some bad blood between them during the game. I got to the bottom of it. I know that there were
Oh,
some tweets about it, but essentially, what I was told through somebody who I know is very, very close to Mark, that this player for Indiana, and I forget what his name is. In fact, I think he is one of the guys coming back from
I think
injury.
his name is Dipshit McGee.
It is not Dipshit McGee. I'm pretty sure it was Tyreek Tucker's who he went after there. One of their starting
Interesting last name. Once we hear what happened, Tucker, huh? He likes to tuck
well,
it.
yeah. Apparently, in the pileup underneath, there was some grabbing underneath the belt, which I've heard before from other Miami players happens quite a bit in the past. Guys will grab each other's junk when they want to rattle the other one, and essentially that's what I think happened here, at least according to my source that was close to Mark Fletcher, who I trust, and I know is not BSing. So for those of you wondering why all that happened, that's my story from what I've gathered from talking to people related to Mark, that it had nothing else to do with but that. All right, let's get to the mailbag questions as we normally wrap up the show here. Carlos, let me start off here with some commentary. Some of this is commentary, some of this is questions. This is from Sadi Raza, who is a fan of the show, always messages me. Thank you, Sadi, for the message here. In the years that go by, we will look back on this season as the 2000 Canes, where you could see the vision is coming together, and this wasn't just a flash. This game reminded me of the University of Washington. Offense couldn't get going. Special teams miscue involving a punt, a QB that ran in for a touchdown. Do you liken it to that Washington loss in 2000?
No, because that Washington, we got our ass kicked in that Washington game. And I think this was essentially, like you said, a one play away, one bad block away from being national champions. I think this team, the difference between, I love the comparison because of the springboard that it had after that into the 2001 championship. But I think this team earned everything it got by going through the gauntlet that it had to go through to get to this championship game. And in a position where they had to face the toughest opponents leading into the championship by far, they still had enough in the tank to go toe-to-toe with the clear number one team in the country. That was the impressive thing about it to me. Like, this team responded week to week to week, and came out and fought to the end. And they deserved the shot to win it. And it's unfortunate they came up a little bit empty, but you can't fault them for their effort. They came out and they played extremely hard for 4 playoff games and earned their way into that championship game and earned the respect of the country, or at least they should have the respect of the country after that game.
Yeah, number 2 in all the polls. AP unanimous number 2. So I think, from how close were they? Everybody felt they were the second best team in the country. And look, Indiana went 16-0. They deserve credit for that.
Yeah.
This is from Javier BJ Boy 1724. Actually, it's probably part of two parts here. What a season. Can't complain. And although we could have won, I was grateful for the season we did have. Something lasting is being built, and I'm here for it. From a lawyer's opinion, what are your thoughts on Mensah? He's always on it. He knows what we're going to be talking about. What is the best and worst case scenario? We covered that, Javi. I'm going to refer you, obviously, to the beginning of the show.
Yeah, Javi. By now, you know.
By now, you know. But the second question, which we will answer. Also, I feel like we still need a linebacker. What is still available out there? Is there any chance Washington comes back after entering the portal? I think he means Bobby Washington.
Yeah.
First of all, Bobby Washington didn't play, so you shouldn't be worried about Bobby Washington leaving. There's other guys. Like I said, there are players available in the portal. I don't have the list in front of me right now of all the I got sidetracked covering the Canes. I was supposed to be part of the portal team, Carlos, and having all my research and
You're like,
everything
listen, I got
done.
shit to do. There's other
I,
things I
I
got to
had
do.
to write. I was a part of like 16 stories this weekend for the New York Times. Okay, writing a bunch of things on Miami, and I haven't had time to catch up. And like I said, I'm starting my team by team breakdown. I can tell you, Indiana's got a pretty good team next year, even though they're losing a bunch of dudes. They did well in the portal, and they're holding on to some pieces. Their offensive line looks good. Outside of that, and what Miami has, I can't speak intelligently because I haven't looked at the latest stuff. And that's what all you guys do. You bust my balls. You're like, oh, you're talking about something and this happened already. And it's like, dude, we record the show. It airs the next day. Things happen. And I don't always know everything that's going on. I try, but I don't. So anyway, I don't have an answer who's available. I can tell you there are guys available because there just are. Not everybody has signed. Some guys are waiting out to see what happens, who leaves. Everybody's looking to cash in and make some money and go to a good school. So
And
while
trust me,
some
Javi. Right now, Mario is not only on the high school recruiting trail, but he's got the Publix carrito right now, the shopping cart. He's going through the aisles, looking. Okay, do I really need some more Chex Mix? You know what? I think I need some more Chex Mix. I think I ran out. Do I need a guayaba and queso crema because I want something sweet at the end of the night? I think I'm gonna pick some of that too up. So he's working on it, bro. He's working on it.
I can tell you this from talking to people at Media Day. Mario went into the transfer portal just fine. And I asked him point blank, did this make things any more challenging having to coach during the transfer portal window? And he basically told me to shut up. That yes, of course I know what the hell I'm doing when it comes to roster building, right? I mean,
Yep.
he wasn't mean about it, but he said it like, yeah, we were well prepared, and all of his assistants and all the people I spoke with are like, we didn't miss anybody we didn't want. Like other than going after guys who signed elsewhere, it wasn't like, oh, we can't recruit this guy to our program because we're busy coaching. They felt like they had enough time to get people that they wanted. At least that's
And
what they told
ultimately, I
me.
think they got the best quarterback because I think Mensah's a hell of a lot better than Sam Levitt.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there too, as well. All right, this is from Steven Thunder, 56 Blacks again. Any ideas on fixing the tight end position and possible tight end coach options?
Yeah, get a guy that can catch the ball. How about that? Let's start there. So yeah, it wasn't just a blocking by Bauman. My man dropped about 3 in the game that he could have had. We need a vertical threat at tight end. We need a guy that could bring it back to the days of the tight ends that we were rolling out, like a Will Mallory. Like, God, what's this kid from Las Vegas? I forgot his name now.
Brevin Jordan.
Reverend Jordan. You need guys like that, a Clive Walford. You need guys that could stretch the field from the tight end spot, at least give you a little bit of a vertical threat, and be a guy you can make the defense think about and worry about.
Yeah. All right, Armando Izaguirre, AY2 Mondo. What was the best part of the season for y'all?
Wow. For me, it was the journey getting there, man. For me, it was that last second getting in, on selection Sunday, hearing their name called, the thing that we thought wasn't going to happen happening, the improbable, winning at Texas A&M in the most difficult environment. I think all the players mentioned that was probably the toughest place they've ever played.
Mm-hmm.
Beating Ohio State finally after all these years, getting that win against Ole Miss shorthanded because of the flu and all the things they had to go through, overcoming themselves to get there, battling Indiana all the way down to the end. But I think, to me, aside from all that being the best part about it, I think the best part about it was the unity that came about in the fan base as the ball kept rolling. As we kept moving forward in the playoffs, people started becoming more and more united, and the fracturing of the fan base started to settle a little bit more and coalesce into one fan base until we got to the championship, and it was like, we're all here together. And I think, for me, that was special because for so many years we've seen so many different directions, this fan base being pulled in so many different directions, so many different opinions. Everybody's got all these sour grapes. We're all pissed off about what's happened. We all have an opinion about it. We all want Nike over Adidas. We want to change the uniforms. No, this sucks, or that sucks, or this Everybody's got an opinion about the recruit that they love the most and why he's not getting on the field. And for once everybody was like, yo, we're Hurricanes and we're playing for the title. Isn't this some shit? And to me, not only that is that important for the Hurricanes, but I think that's something that we've lost in society. I think the Hurricanes used to be about, when I was growing up, sitting in a stadium with a bunch of people who were nowhere near being from the same walk of life. We were all from opposite ends of Dade County, from Miami. Some of us grew up in Little Havana. Some of us grew up in Overtown. Some of us grew up in Kendall. We all were from different places, But when Saturday came around, we were all from the Orange Bowl. We were
Yeah.
all Miami Hurricanes. No matter what we believed, what we thought, who we were, what our skin color was, we were one. And I think that's been lost over the years, not just in the Hurricane fan base, but societally. I think in this country, we've all pushed to the extremes on either
Mhm.
end. And we're more about being right than we are about coming together and finding common ground anymore. And I think seeing the unity that came about from this, seeing the common ground that we found, that this team brought us together, and forgetting all the other noise and all the other bullshit, because ultimately, I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what your political leanings are. I don't care what your religion is. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you're responsible for yourself, brother. All right. Ain't nobody knocking on my door at 6 in the morning telling me, "Hey, don't get up. I'll take the kid to school. Don't get up.
Mhm.
I'll go to work for you." Ain't nobody doing shit for me. I got to go out and I got to get it myself. I got to grind. So I don't believe in people that way. I believe in God and I believe in process and I believe in work. And all of us coming together like this, that was something that I'll never forget.
Well said, Carlos. Really well said. And I got to tell you, I felt the same way in every city that I went to watch these guys, the fans that were there to support them. Even after the loss on Monday night, as those kids were coming in brokenhearted, some of them with tears streaming down their cheeks, everybody in that hallway was saying thank you and cheering them
Yeah.
and applauding them. And as much as it sucked to lose that game, there was a real love that you could feel in that building. And it started early. It started early. There was an appreciation, and yes, it was 60-40 Indiana fans to Miami fans. I can tell you that, but it never felt like Miami was out cheered. It never felt like it wasn't uh, a pro Miami crowd. It was a pro Miami crowd. It was also a pro Indiana crowd, but you never felt lopsided because those fans that were there were loud and proud and cheering, and not one boo, not one, sort of negative moment from the fan base. And that was refreshing.
And it's also this season, especially the playoff run, gave us back the one thing that we had lost for so many years. Not just hope, but belief. We
Hmm.
believed that even down 17-7, this team was going to come back. It never felt like, okay, we're done. We believed throughout the game, all four quarters. So that last play, everyone believed the Hurricanes were going to win that game.
Hmm. Yep. Some of the questions here, I appreciate it. Alex Perry, A Perry, 1927. He says, "Why couldn't Beck overthrow Marion by 10 yards instead of underthrowing it?" Things we've talked about here. Um, Alex mentions, "I can't help but think if Jeremiah is a Kane, we were national champs right now. Probably, if you imagine Jeremiah and Malachi together." Um, anyway, some other ones here. Plan B if we don't get Mensah. I don't want to dive into all this stuff because we've already talked about it on the show. But here's a good one from Scary Rhombus on Twitter. "I see a lot of way too early polls with Miami outside the top 10. Typical disrespect or valid?" I will say this, Carlos. Stu Mandel asked for my advice on Miami along with Sam Kahn, who does a tremendous job covering the transfer portal for us, before he came out with his top 25. And Stu ranked Miami fourth. I told him, as he was starting to put this thing together last week, I said, "Look, I don't know what Miami's got at quarterback, but I really don't have questions about anything other than quarterback. I feel like he's recruited so well at so many other positions that I would think Miami has to be the favorite to win the ACC next year, even without knowing who the quarterback is. I think foundationally, the way Mario is recruited, they probably need to be the ACC favorite. But that said, uh, does that make them a top 10 team or not? Do you feel right now with Darien Mensah they're a top 10 team, which makes them
I
a
think they're a
playoff
top
team?
5 team.
Okay.
I think they're a top 5 team. I think they've done enough, like you said, recruiting and enough to prove with this season that they can beat anybody when they're rolling and they're playing their style of football.
Yeah.
Both coordinators should be coming back. You've got a quarterback that's top flight that's coming back. It looks like you're going to make moves to be able to plug those holes in the offensive line that are sort of going away.
Yeah.
You've got a bunch of bodies on that defensive line. If you can land this guy from Missouri, which it looks like they are, you've got another veteran pass rusher there who's going to make a huge difference. Your secondary is much improved over the last 2 years. The system's in place for a second year on defense. So I'm interested what the maniac Corey Heatherman can do. And they now are at a point where, like I said, they're going to learn from this experience, because now they have to look at themselves and say, okay, we made this run based on what we did, but Indiana stopped us because they were better at doing this against us. Now they get to go back in the lab and identify and self-scout and say, where can we better? Where can we
Yeah.
be better? How can we elevate this to another level?
Yeah, I'm with you. I appreciate all the other questions. Ryan Dosen, Jay Salter, all the people who sent it in. I appreciate it. We covered the majority of the subjects of what you're asking here as I'm looking through the questions. Anyway, great 2025 season for Miami. Exceeded my expectations. Didn't think they'd make it to the national championship game. I thought a good season would be winning the ACC, winning a playoff game. I thought they do that. That's progress.
Yep.
They exceeded my progress expectations. And look, Kurt Signetti deserves a tip of the hat. He took the losingest program in college football history, and in 2 years, brought over a culture from James Madison and shocked the world. He didn't just beat Miami, he beat Ohio State. He won the Big 12 championship and he won 16-0. So before you criticize Miami in any way, shape, or form, realize that they lost to a worthy champion with a worthy Heisman Trophy winner. And being second best stinks, right? You want to be number one. Miami didn't earn its reputation being number two, but it sure is nice to be number two for the first time in 23 years.
Yeah, and if we're gonna lose to somebody, I'm good losing to that team, right? The Signetti wins. Google that guy. But I mean, and Fernando Mendoza, the story obviously was played ad nauseum throughout the game and leading up to it, but Miami still won when we won that championship. Miami won the Heisman. Miami won the national championship because of that quarterback. So we can all take pride in it. We didn't lose to some other random team, a bunch of dudes collected from somewhere else, some guys that were paid off to form a super team. We lost to our homebred, homegrown little guy that came out of nowhere and became the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback from Columbus High. So I'll take that. I'll take a loss to a dude that's from Miami. Only Miami can beat Miami.
Yeah. Well said, brother. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the Wide Right podcast in 2025. Even though we bled into 2026, this is not the end of our show. We will be back with more episodes.
Yeah, shit, we're working overtime, Manny. Now this is now. I need like 5 Flanagans now. I'm not used to doing shows in January.
I've only repaid you with a hat so far. I do owe you like 5 Flanagan meals. We do have to get together and eat a meal when we can. And now I got more time, even though I'm going to be working on transfer portal and roster construction and all that kind of stuff. And but I'm glad. And now you're entering your busy season, of course.
Yeah, next week the shit really kicks off. Great, my life ends for the next 3 months, and it's nothing but taxes.
I'm just glad I get to talk football with you every single year. I got to tell you, it's one of the most enjoyable things I get to do is this show with you, brother. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your voice, your thoughts. I know Miami fans are very appreciative of you and being able to hear what you think. I know your fan base keeps growing.
Yeah, it's up to 6 people. I'm thankful for it, man. This is I still think the reason why you invited me to do the show is so I would stop texting you about all this shit on the side and taking your time up. And you're like, bro, just come on the air and let's just do this on the air so I can get out of the way.
Not at all.
You get all your shit, get all your energy out, get it out of the way, and then we don't have to talk about this shit anymore. But I'm thankful for it, man. I told somebody on Twitter the other day, I never lose sight of the fact that I get to talk ball with a friend and people enjoy it. And people, have some insight from what I say and glean something out of it and really enjoy what I have to say and enjoy what we have to say together because we just do what we normally do when we're farting around, just talking shit, drinking beers. It's not as polished as this, but we're basically talking about the same shit.
Absolutely. Our real life friendship is very much like this show and it's authentic and hopefully you guys appreciate it and enjoy it and continue to tune into us. Again, we will be back. Don't know exactly when. I know that I'm also doing another podcast with Charles Fishbein, the Fishcast, which Charles is a longtime friend of mine as well and a scout. And we're going to have college coaches on the show, different people to talk during the off season. Coaches love to go on shows in the off season. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get Mario on here. I'm not cool enough.
Yeah, he ain't gonna do it.
But maybe we
can get Mirabal on here.
We get Shannon Dawson. What about that?
Yeah, no, we don't want that, bro. You don't want a cage match on air. Let me talk to Mirabal. I'd like to talk to Mirabal.
All right, man. Well, that's it for this episode of Wide Right. We will see you guys again soon.
Peace.